Good morning, everyone. Thank you again, Inman, for sharing your story with us. I think it's such a great illustration about ownership in this country and how owning property gives you a different voice, a different kind of power in this country. And all too often, we take it for granted and assume that once we have property, we will always have property, and that's not always the case, and that's why we're here today. I'm really excited about this conversation with you, Paige. It's really important to really be thoughtful and strategic about how we help communities and help families protect the property and the homes that they own. At NeighborWorks, we know really clearly that it's not just about helping someone get into a house, but keeping it and maintaining it and keeping it for wealth creation in the family, if that's what the owner chooses to do. And it's not always easy, either to get in the home or to keep the home. There's multitude of obstacles, legal and otherwise. So I'm really excited to talk to Paige Carlson-Heim from TD Bank today. TD has really stepped into this issue, and I'm really so glad that you have. But tell us a little bit about why this issue is so important to the bank, and to you personally.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Marietta, for the question, and good morning to all of you. It's awesome to see so many people in this room, because I agree with you. This is a huge issue, and it's an important conversation, and we at TD are really looking forward to hearing your thoughts and your insights about what we do to address this huge problem. Because, as you said, we know that homeownership is important for economic mobility, for stability, to help people, maintain and pass on generational wealth. And I think, as I think about the fact that in a little more than a year, this country will celebrate the sesquicentennial, right? And yet in 250 years, we have not solved or figured out how to ensure that everybody can have a safe, affordable place to call home, right? That, for me, is kind of where it starts, right? This country we like to call ourselves the land of opportunity, and home ownership is a fundamental piece of that and view of that. And so as we think about it, and the statistics that Molly shared earlier kind of framed it right there, right? Like, it's the problem is not getting better, it's getting worse, right? And so we know that if people do have the opportunity to become homeowners, it's critically important that we find ways to ensure they can continue to remain homeowners. So how did we get here at TD? Well, a few years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago now, Pew published a study about the situation around Tangled title here in Philadelphia. Philadelphia is our U.S. headquarters for TD Bank, right? This is a community like all of the communities where we work and have locations, we care deeply about this community. So I read the study and I was like, wow, this is really a problem, because all of the resources that are available to people who own their homes to keep being owners of those homes, whether it's support for repairs or restoration or upgrades or accessibility improvements or refinancing to be able to afford education for your family member, right? Those are now not accessible to you if your title is not clear, right? Big problem. So I was curious. I wanted to understand. I started talking with all my colleagues at TD, and we wanted to understand now we know what the situation is in Philadelphia. What about in the rest of the places where TD provides its services? So someone on our ESG team did some research into that, and she looked into what is the magnitude of the problem elsewhere in our footprint, who is doing what about it, and we quickly found out the magnitude is huge. The answer to the question about who's doing what was a little less clear. So I kept talking about it. And then TD became a cornerstone partner in Convergence Philadelphia, which came to Philadelphia about 2 years ago now. And one of the questions I was asking all the early people at Convergence know, I was asking this question over and over again. What are we doing about Tangled title? Is this going to be part of Convergence? And they assured me it was, and it definitely is. And I expect we're going to hear from some of the folks that are on the front lines here in Philadelphia in a bit. So I said, we at TD, this is important to us. Home ownership is important to us. It's fundamentally important to us as our culture is really all about banking human, right? And that means a lot of things. But one of the things it means is this is a human problem. We are in service to people in our communities. We have to address this problem. What can we do? How can we get involved? What would be helpful to understand from our perspective? So I shared my dream about TD getting involved with this with Hayat, who's here with me today, my colleague. And she kind of made it happen. We found out that NeighborWorks is doing some amazing work, and we said, let's work together on this.
I really appreciate that story, because I think what we know is that when we listen to stories and understand the impact, we can really collaborate and work together on solutions. As you started to unpack the Pew study and work here locally, was there something that was surprising to you about this issue? It's sometimes when we think about problems, we can underestimate the complexity, and this is definitely, I think, one of those issues. But what has surprised you so far about this work?
I don't know if I would say surprise is how I would just characterize it, but it is complex. And I think about, if someone is in a situation where their title is not clear and they need to be able to address a problem in their home, or they want to refinance so they can send a child to school, there are so many challenges. And I'm sort of reminded of that image of Sisyphus pushing the rock up the hill, right? It's not a easy situation to untangle and unwind and fix. And I think about how overwhelming it must be to have to deal with that issue and to try to sort through all of the aspects of it to be able to get it. And so as we kept talking about it, we found out that this is a problem that is agnostic when it comes to economics and position. We have colleagues who are in this situation and who are dealing with this situation every day. So that brought it really, really even more home, right? Humans live in the communities we serve, but they also work at our institution, and they're confronting this issue. And it's enormous. And it seems to me that as we start to think about how do we address the problem, not only do we have to help people solve their immediate issue, but then we have to do what we can to make sure that the problem doesn't perpetuate itself, right?
I mean, it seems like working together in collaboration, this should be very solvable, but it is complex. I really appreciate TD's leadership on this and really taking it on. I know you've resourced NeighborWorks and 11 NeighborWorks organizations. We'll talk about that in a minute about the pilot. But you also put your money where your mouth is, which I think is a wonderful example of partnership, because at TD Bank, they not only resource and provide money for work on this, you also made some of your legal team available in the bank to engage in this work in a pro bono way. Can you talk to me about how that came together and what sort of impact you're hoping to see?
Yeah. So another aspect of that bank human culture I talked about is that our employees are engaged, and they're always coming to us and saying, are there opportunities where we can, use our skills to help out in the community? And so when I think about working with organizations, because I'm not the expert. I just, I read a lot, I talk to people, I hear that there are issues, but organizations like NeighborWorks organizations, you guys are on the front lines, you know what we need to do. So we want to be working with you, and our colleagues do too. And so one of the things that, one of the aspects of this partnership that Hayat worked very hard to put together, we have a lot of lawyers that work at TD Bank. Who knew, right? And they are very committed to using their skills as lawyers for the benefit of the community wherever they can. And we said, hey, it's great that we do tax prep, and it's great that we help out with various things, but this is a real issue, and we need you to make lawyers available for one of your pro bono days to help out people who are facing this situation. And so in March, we've scheduled an event in partnership with Philly VIP, who provides free legal assistance here in the city of Philadelphia, who's part of the Convergence Initiative and really leading the charge when it comes to Tangled title here in the city. They're going to work together with another external legal partner and provide training to those lawyers at TD who want to make themselves available to organizations and people in need to understand about estate planning. What are because I talked earlier about the fact that, okay, we got to fix the problem, but then once it's fixed, how do we make sure it doesn't happen again? And we think that leaning into estate planning and making sure that people have those plans in place so that, like in the story we heard from Inman, right? Like his family was on it, right? But sometimes people aren't aware that this is important, and they aren't even aware that they have a problem until it hits them sort of straight in the face. And so we want, our lawyers are really eager to see what they could do to help people get those estate plans and avoid this in the future.
I really love seeing institutions lean in and extend expertise in places that they do best. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's a great model.
Yeah. Can I ask you a couple of questions?
Absolutely.
If I may. So we've talked about what from our perspective, how we can engage, but can you share a bit about, from your perspective, what is the role that community-based organizations like the NeighborWorks members and intermediaries like NeighborWorks can play in addressing this very complex problem?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think from an intermediary perspective, obviously we can provide resources, tools, relationships that can be leveraged locally. But so much of this particular work and most real estate is local, right? It's driven locally, and that has to do with laws and state laws and locality laws. But just really resourcing the effort to try to get community groups informed and well equipped. So many times NeighborWorks organizations and other community development organizations play this role as a resource hub in their communities, whether it's for disaster relief or COVID information, even though they may not be healthcare or food facing organizations, they're trusted in the community. And that trust is so important in getting information that is accurate and in real time out to families and individuals. So leveraging that, I think, and making sure that organizations are well prepared to respond to these issues. But I also think that, you heard from this morning, Molly talk, we have a long history of promoting homeownership and preparing people to become homeowners. And that journey, you don't go to school to understand that whole process and what everyone does in the process, it's complex. Yeah. Transferring real estate in this country is a complex and costly transaction. And so certainly there is some work for us to do and make sure that we, in the homebuyer ed courses, that people understand how you take title, how title is transferred. But very often you need this information like when it's upon you. It's sort of like insurance. Like you don't have enough insurance when you have a crisis. And so what's the what's the intervention event that can get a homeowner or property owner's attention before they have a problem.
Right.
And so I think organizations can leverage their proximity to families and individuals on the ground to get them before they have this problem, and raise it with them so that they're paying attention.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, one of the conversations that comes up a lot in the homeownership preservation working group within Convergence Philadelphia is about policy.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if you can talk to us a bit about, you know, what is that interplay between policy? What are those policy needs, and the actual interventions that we can offer to people who find themselves in this situation?
Yeah, I think organizations like NeighborWorks, working in partnership with with the private sector, really can help inform policymakers about these issues, what can be done to resolve them, whether it's rewriting policy or initiating programs. NeighborWorks is a nonpartisan organization. We are not an advocacy organization, but we can certainly inform based on the experiences that we're hearing from communities. And so I think it's really our responsibility to inform policymakers on what we're hearing, what can be done, and if there's advocacy work that needs to be done to repair or fix problematic rules and regulations, there are ways in which we can inform that.
Yeah, great. So you mentioned this a little bit earlier. In addition to this being a great learning event today, I understand that it's the kickoff for an exciting peer learning initiative. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
I would really love to. So with the support of TD Bank, we are resourcing 11 NeighborWorks organizations across your footprint. So from Florida to Massachusetts, we have organizations that will be leading the way in developing strong inheritance programs. 3 organizations have already really started digging on this. So I think the remaining 8 have a lot to learn from them. But what I really love about this approach is it really leverages the power of the NeighborWorks network in that they're working locally but can come together as a peer group and a cohort and learn from each other, share tools, ask tough questions. And so this convening is that kickoff. You know, the heirs property issue is a complex challenge, but it should be a solvable one. And I think with this kind of investment and pulling people together, acknowledging the brutal facts of the issue, we should be able to turn this around and make lasting change.
That's awesome. And, you know, and thank you so much for letting us come along for the ride. And I hope that, you know, as these organizations, these 11 organizations dig in, if they see opportunities, either for our colleagues, and I have colleagues here, I have mentioned Hayat and my colleague Vanessa Owens, who works in our community mortgage lending space and who has a personal connection to this issue, right? You know, I hope that you will let us know how we can be helpful boots on the ground, in a boots on the ground kind of a way. And also that you will share with us what is needed so that we can figure out how we can be more impactful and more helpful to you.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate this conversation, but importantly, really share the partnership and the relationship we have with TD and everything you're doing on to support this effort. It's obvious it's not just a legal issue or financial expertise issue. It's a real community issue because of the impact that we saw with Inman's family. We see that multiplied tens of thousands of times. So thank you for the work you're doing, leveraging internal expertise, working in collaboration. It's a great model and example that we love to work in and hope we can do more.
Well, thank you for that, and Marietta, and thank you to NeighborWorks. And I would absolutely be remiss if I didn't mention Joni, whom I've known for more years than I care to admit. But happened to be having a conversation with her one day, and as at a time in which anybody who would listen to me heard about Tangled title and my interest in the issue, and she said, let's talk.
We can do something about that together.
And that's kind of how that started. And, I agree with you. I think collaboration is key, partnership is key. We want to be partnering with you, we want to be supporting you, and we want to be helping to address this issue so that we can ensure that we are preserving those homeowners that NeighborWorks organizations are working so hard to achieve. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.